So I started working in the morning shift when my twins, who are now 14, were 10 months old, and I never looked back. And it's the best kept secret in television. The morning shift is everything for mamas. And so that, has afforded me balance or the best way to achieve it anyway in the news business, right?
Welcome to the Seismic Shift podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Johnston, and this is a podcast, as you know, we explore the seismic shifts that are shaking up the way that you work and the way that you live. And y'all, we have a special treat today. Lucy Bustamante is in the house. I am so excited. Let me tell you all what it took to get her on this show. So she was interviewing me on my new book, The Seismic Shift in You, and we were talking about connection. And as I am looking at her and having this interview, I'm thinking to myself, you are the embodiment of connection.
Aww.
And I'm thinking to myself, gosh, we need to have Lucy on the Seismic Shift because Lucy, well, first of all, welcome, Lucy Bustamante.
Thank you. You're amazing. No, the energy that walked in with you when you came onto that set, I was like, this lady... there's just, every now and again, everybody's interesting, right? But every now and again, there's an energy that walks into a room with a person and you just lit the place up. And, your book, I just think the world of it, you really knew how to encapsulate these moments that really make people click. And so it's an honor to be with you, and whatever I can offer, please, by all means. I hope it's something valuable, but truly, thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Really, thank you. Thank you, Lucy. And for our listeners, I mean, it is kind of a coup. Like usually the anchors of Fox News, which is what Lucy is, and she's an award-winning Emmy, Muro. If there's an award, she's received it. Over 20 years in the field. She started here with WWL. She's gone all over the country. And we just got her back in New Orleans 2 years ago. And she's the anchor with our Fox News. And she's brilliant. And so not only having this moment when we were doing the interview, I was like, gosh, I hope one day I can turn the interview on her because I want to know her story. I didn't want to talk about my story. I wanted to know about your story. And I have these incredible memories of you, Lucy, because you covered Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Johnson. I'll tell you, that was not only was it being part of a team that covered it and stayed through the storm. 75% of the staff at WWL TV at that time lost everything. And the person that I worked for then, who was our news director, Sandy Breland, is now the chief operating officer of my corporation now, Gray Media. And she's the type of leader that I tell people, I'd follow her to the moon and back with the blindfold on, And so that was one of those assignments that just put people on the map. And I think what did it, it was a two-way relationship where New Orleanians really missed each other. Like we really missed each other. Aside from all of the rebuilding and the smells and the disaster and FEMA and project worksheets and all the things that just became our language in the media and at home, the connection there is that we truly were all doing the same thing together. And my job at the time happened to be a journalist news reporter that, because we were the only TV station that stayed on air during Hurricane Katrina, that was kind of like the forced connection. Like you had to watch us. And they did 16 million hits a day. I remember that statistic on our website, just New Orleanians looking for each other and looking for news. And so I was 24 when the storm hit. And that was early career for me. And it was just, such a defining assignment because it tested your commitment to the craft. And it was also a love language, if you will, to your people, right? The community that you were like, I'm going to stick this out with you. I'm not going to leave the market because I was personally messed up, right? With a home and with things like that. It was like, no, we're going to do this together. And it's okay for the people that decided to go. Everybody does what's best for their own family. But as an early career journalist at the time, it was such a lesson both ways.
I just got chills multiple moments in you talking about that because literally I'm having flashbacks, and they're not PTSD flashbacks. They're flashbacks of meaningful connection, of seeing you, remembering you. I was in Houston with a baby. at the Residence Inn every morning, going to that community breakfast, and all of the televisions were on and WWL was on, and seeing you and getting tears in my eyes because you represented New Orleans, you represented home. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that you did so well, Lucy, is you were real. You took off the facade, which I'm sure you were taught to have to like be this, blah, 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 blah. And you were a real person. You were a New Orleanian reporting on a real disaster, and you were authentic. And that was one of my takeaways. And you were beautiful. Well done.
Oh, what a gift. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, to get that as they say, gift of words, right? 20 years later, that's everything. I'm going to tell you this, the people that I worked with at the time, and I think the blessing of being a New Orleanian is that our starting point is real. Like that is how we connect first, living in multiple places around the country. You see other people's starting points, right? Like maybe it's the, how many things on your resume, right? Maybe that's the most important starting point. Maybe it's how many PhDs. Maybe it's, depending on where you are, right? And we really start with whether the person seems authentic to you and how's your family. And we know that we have to be okay at the most intimate level, and we have to connect on the most intimate level to be able to build from there. And so I think when you lose everything and you bring it down to the sheer survival basics, being real was, everybody had needed that starting point. And that's the blessing of growing up in New Orleans. I think it's why for a long time you had the 3 leading morning shows on the network level all had New Orleanian anchors. You had Michelle Miller, you had Robin Roberts, right? Sally Ann Roberts, his sister, and Hoda Kotb. And the one thing that they all had in common is just a very real approach to people. And I don't think you can teach that. I think it's cultural. It's something that you're raised in. And if you learn it later and you become a master of it, great. But I think for us culturally, it's very, it's innate to our culture to have that be the starting point.
I've never heard it described so accurately than how you just described it. What did you say? Our starting point is real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You begin with real. And I remember when I first moved here, I fell madly in love with New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
And so I chose it knowing all of the stats were not good.
What
I
did
chose
it for
it
you?
emotionally.
Yeah. What did it?
I remember, yes, the people. I remember I was recruited by a consulting firm, and so I got a chance to work with Petermere Advertising and Entergy, and so I got to know the people, and they were funny and cool and real, and they did not care about PhDs and titles. And I remember being at crawfish boils and walking away thinking, nobody asked me about my work, which I thought was so odd, because in Atlanta and all the other places I had lived, it was all about what do you do, what's your title, and everybody just talks about work. And here it was, where's your mama, where are you from, did you go to whichever festival last week, and what'd you eat, what's been your favorite meal. And I remember one of the best memories of moving back after Katrina was the talk of the restaurants opening up, and which restaurant did you go to and which one is opening up, because we're so much more European than other cities. Is we spend our money on experiences, we spend our money dining, on festivals, on being together, throwing big parties. We spend it on experiences. So yeah, it was the people. And I love how you described it. You start with real. And another thing I remember at these picnic tables with crawfish boils when I first moved here, I also was struck by how kids, because I was in my 20s. So I was in my 20s when you were the same age when you were covering Katrina. So I'm in my 20s, I'm at these crawfish boils, and people from all ages would engage conversation with you at the crawfish bowl. And I remember thinking, I'm this probably boring grown up. Why are these kids talking to me? Because in southern towns, I'd come from Auburn, and the kids were at the kids table and the grown-ups were at the grown-ups table. You did not mix it up. And in New Orleans, it's all mixed up, right? So you grew up here?
I grew up here. My parents were Cuban refugees. My mom was actually born in Spain. She left Spain because of dictator Franco, and then they both had to leave with my brother and sister from Cuba in 1969 because of the dictator Castro. So my poor mama, but both of my parents, just amazing people. And the Archdiocese of New Orleans is who took them in and gave them all the resources that they needed to start over. And, my dad worked at Schregman's as a can boy. And, my mom did, she worked on Canal Street making ties at Rubenstein's as one of her many jobs. And then, my brother and my sister, went to a variety of schools growing up, but eventually Holy Angels and Cabrini and Brother Martin. And, I was kind of like the surprise baby. They're 15 and 20 years older than me. So I definitely had a very different upbringing than they did. I was born into a strong middle-class, hardworking family, and they built from ground up, like child refugee amnesia kind of thing. And I'm so proud of him. Like he became, it brings me to tears. He became, he just retired after 38 years at United Airlines, captain at United Airlines, just retired. My sister still runs the shop on Veterans and Hesper. It's an alteration store. My mother taught the whole family how to sew as a means of living, and so I was definitely like the privileged kid out of my siblings. And I love telling their story because it honors, it honors the American spirit of, yes, you can restart here, and, working from literally the ground up and building something that you can leave for your family. And so moving back was something that, a lot of factors went into that decision, but a big part of it was just, I was so tired of living away from my mom and not having that grandmother influence. And my mother's 91, so at some point you have to stop asking her to keep coming to you. And you just need that warmth from knowing your culture and from just seeing, the multi-generational families are such a blessing. And you don't realize how much you miss that warmth. And if you can do it in a city that where you don't have to sacrifice good pay, good healthcare, good education, right? Like that's what I want for our city. I want people to be able to stay here and also have good pay, good education, good healthcare, all the strong systems that you see that are so well funded in other parts of the country. I don't want us to have to pick one. I want it to coexist. And so I think our generation is definitely working to do that. And, and on all political aisles, right? Like the conversation is the same. And you really learn that when you're working in the media, where you kind of see everybody's messaging, right? But to be able to offer that to your community is just I consider that just the goal, right? You shouldn't have to sacrifice one for the other.
You are so right. And how in the heck did we get you back? Because we back 2 years ago. You were gone for a while. How did we get that? I was so excited when I heard you were coming back to New Orleans.
You're
and again,
so
I only know you on a screen until we recently had the interview, and now we are going to be very good friends.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Amen to that. No, same.
How did we get you back? How did you do it? How did you pull it off?
So it took a few years. Because you know how it goes, Michelle, like you have your own child and it's no longer just about your dream. It's about like, how do you raise them in an environment that you're giving them better than what you had, right? And so it took a few years to just get the right contract. And a morning shift is very important to me. And also, visibility and impact of our work. The morning shift allows me to be there for them at 3:00 in the afternoon and pick them up. And look, the way I saw it is after you start like sleep training your babies, you're like, I'm losing sleep anyway. What's working a morning shift? No big deal. Like I have a baby. So I started working in the morning shift when my twins, who are now 14, were 10 months old, and I never looked back. And it's the best kept secret in television. The morning shift is everything for mamas. And so that, has afforded me balance or the best way to achieve it anyway in the news business. Right. So coming back for the right shift was very important. And then what I loved about the company that offered me the job, Gray Media, is doing a lot of corporate growth out of New Orleans, not just Atlanta. We have a lot of things that are based here too. And that's thanks to Sandy Breland and Lee Zurich and like people that also grew up in the market, right? Like Lee Zurich went to Newman. Sandy Breland went to Chappelle High School. It's people that are like, hey, New Orleans is a great place to build. We don't have to go to Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta is a great headquarters, don't get me wrong, right? But like, you can do this here, and I'm going to show you how. And what a blessing that they had a corporate parent company that says, okay, we'll build you a brand new building. I mean, you were here. I mean, Doc, this place is, when I interned here 25 years ago, it was old then, right? This place is what we needed to just increase morale. But yeah, a lot had to come together, and I had to make sure that the kids would be transitioned easily. But I always say also, my father being my guardian angel on the other side, he passed away in September of 2022. And that kind of hit the fast forward button. And just to see, coming from a huge company like NBC, and the power of an extremely diversified corporate media, right? It was important to me to come to a place that could operate on the same scale or close to it. And Gray Media is doing that. And, they're growing in ways that, I'm at a part in my career where I'm old enough to know better, but young enough to still want in. Yeah. So it took a lot. It took a lot, but we're here.
It took a lot, and you're here. And your 4 kids, are they enjoying New Orleans?
They love it. And I'm so happy that they love it, right? Because there's things that they miss for sure. Like, like travel ball means you really have to travel. Up there, it was like you just had to go like the next town over because the population was so much bigger, right? You only had to travel an hour for travel ball. Here we're like going to Nashville for travel ball. Right. So like there are those adjustments, but I don't care. Like they love how friendly people are. They can't believe how genuinely friendly and warm and talkative, and it's pulled them out of a shell. Not that they even had a shell before, but like your socialization skills growing up here are just, they explode.
You talk to everybody.
You talk to everybody, and everybody knows your everybody. Mom.
Everybody knows your mama, and you find commonality in the line of the car wash and in the drugstore and in the grocery store, and you see recipes. I had a woman the other day at Fresh Market. I am not a cook. I don't pretend to be a cook. I went all out and went to Fresh Market and got a piece of salmon, and I'm waiting for it. And the girl in line is like, how are you going to prepare it? I said, I have no idea. I do not cook. And she tells me what to do, leaves. We then talk through the checkout line. The next thing I know, she's running back. She's like, I forgot to tell you to add honey. Add honey at the end. She comes back to tell me that.
Found you.
Yeah. So to tell me to add honey on the top. And she was right. And so New Orleanians, I love that. We talk to everybody. And it's one of the true, I feel, tell me if I'm wrong, cities where we still have the different generations living, your aunts down the street, your moms down the street. Like we are still multi-generational living in a city together. That's not as common anymore.
No, you're so right about that. And not just that, but it's very much culturally accepted. That's the other thing. It's very much culturally accepted. And so in other places I've lived, and mind you, let me also defend that. When I lived in Virginia, we were a military family. Nobody had their parents. It was like our parents would fly in while the spouses were deployed and help. And, my parents would help the other houses when their kids, right? Because maybe my husband was in town, but theirs was deployed. So it was a different culture altogether. But to appreciate the culture here, I mean, we're just so special. And I just, I want people to, I think they know it. I think we do know it as a culture. But I also, I wish that we knew other things that come from living away. And being in other places. We were gone for 14 years, right? Like 8 in Virginia, 6 in Philadelphia, and just knowing what it can be like when things really are well funded, and that we are worth it. We're worth it. Our culture is worth it. Our traditions are worth it. And really
I love
knowing that.
Just frame that. We are worth it. We are worth it. Our cultures and traditions and the way we live our lives here, and the joie de vivre and the fun and the connection that we have and the laughter and the levity, we are worth it and deserve better. And I feel like with Helena Morena at the helm in mayor's office. I hate putting so much pressure on her. Everybody's looking to her like, you really might be able to make the significant changes that we need.
That was a lot of the popular opinion when she was running. I mean, our political analyst here said she won with a huge majority, right? And so that is a lot of pressure on any political candidate. And so, that's a strong starting point. And I think that as we watch everything unfold and as we see, how they handle the $222 million budget deficit and who knew what when about how much money we were truly out of, and how ARPA money, the FEMA money that we were given years ago, how that was delegated, and who are the custodians of that cash and how did they spend it? I mean, there's a lot to undo to make sure that we don't repeat patterns that have kept us poor.
Gosh, you are so right. And I have the best news. So I have a daughter who's a senior at the University of Georgia.
Oh,
and
wow.
She,
cool.
Yeah, loved her experience. And she was going to move to one of the big cities where all of her friends were going because that's what you do. And I got a call the other week and she said, Mom, because I didn't want it to come for me. I knew what I wanted. I wanted her to come back here, but I bit my tongue. I was like, you do what you need to do, where I will be there to support you. And she called up and she said, you know what? I've been thinking about what I love in cities, and everything I love is in New Orleans. My family, my friends, the restaurants, the festivals, the saints, the city, everything I love in New Orleans.
Convincing.
And I didn't have to do any convincing. It was not me. It was her idea. And you went to Loyola, right? So I still teach at Loyola, and she can get her MBA for free. So that's a no-brainer. My girl is coming back to New Orleans and getting an MBA at Loyola.
If she's anything like her mama, she is going to be a path maker. Okay? I am so excited to see what she does here. That's amazing.
Well, and I bring that up. Thank you, Lucy. I'm thrilled. And I bring that up for a point because I told her, I said, this makes me so happy on so many different levels. I said, most important, I want you to be a part of the solution, not the problem. So if you keep telling everybody, oh, I would move back to New Orleans, but not a lot of college students move back after college. Why don't you be a part of the solution? You be one of the college students who said, I don't want to live anywhere else. This is an amazing city. Then all of a sudden there's a snowball effect, right? And then there's the critical mass, and like attracts like. And then all of a sudden this will be a place like Nashville that is now attracting all of the college grads, right? We can't. And we will be. We need people like her to say, I want to be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem.
That's it. That's it. Is there anything that you would say that you want her to bring with her that she's picked up in her 4 years there?
Oh, gosh, you are such a good interviewer. I just saw your mind. I saw your brain work, and I was like, oh, she's taking the microphone back.
I'm curious about it, especially as somebody like you that knows as much as you do, and that you apply it to your students, but you're also applying it to your kid, right? And that's so sacred. Like, what do you want to make sure that she doesn't lose from her time at such a great school, right? And like, is New Orleans a good ecosystem for everything that she's going to bring back with her?
I don't know, but I'm trying to get her to intern for the Saints and learn from that great organization. And that's a really great question, and I don't know the answer to that. And we'll have to ask her when she comes back. So she's graduating in May, and she'll be back. And my hope for you, as the mom of 4, because your children are younger, is when they go to college and they're about to graduate, they're like, oh yeah, New Orleans is the place. Wouldn't that be amazing? New Orleans. Oh, I'm definitely coming back to New Orleans. We have jobs, infrastructure, economic growth.
That's right. That's right. That's the prayer. That's the prayer, and but you said it right. Like, they find their own way, and how lucky that she, it took me 14 years, but we were able to do it. Right. And to find a life partner that was like, yeah, sure, we'll come. God bless the partners that are like my wife from New Orleans.
Eventually, all the girls from New Orleans come home. That's what they say. If you have a daughter who grows up and moves away, they all come home.
Guilty as charged.
And so I want to ask you some actual questions that I told you that I would ask.
Sure.
I haven't asked any of them yet.
This is great.
I would love to know what some of the seismic shifts you're seeing in the workplace, because that's what I'm really trying to tackle. Like, what are the seismic shifts, and what can we do as leaders to overcome them? What are you seeing?
So the latest is AI and information dissemination, of course. The AI conversation is interesting because, to bring it back to the corporation that I work for, they created their own AI. It's called Gray Eye. And so basically, they didn't want us putting information that we've learned, because obviously what we do isn't just reporting information, it's knowing when to report it. And if you put it into ChatGPT, well, then it's out into some ecosystem that you can't control. So they created their own AI where we can use that algorithm to pull information. So that's been very interesting to see how we handle it in a way that, by it being proprietary, you assume that it's also safe, right? Or safer. And just the regurgitation of information in that way while still keeping it authentic, where it's like, hold on, Gray Eye, let me tweak it. You missed the mark on this one. And I know this just from growing up here, right? Whatever topic it may be. But just the rapid recall that it gives you is really going to revolutionize the speed at which we research and write and report. So that's been very interesting. The other thing that is a little bit older is the streaming, right? We're now creating newscasts, and we have been, my previous employer as well, creating newscasts just for streaming audiences. And so that comes with the age of the viewer and understanding, the audience member and the age of the audience member and how they receive information. That was seismic, and saying, wait a second, what do you mean, you're using this for streaming? And my last employer, I would create a story for broadcast and then 2 more versions for streaming. And one was in Spanish and one was in English, right? And so we're also seeing just the growth of Latino population, Spanish-speaking audiences. That's seismic. So, creating content for them, right? There's Fox 8 Live in Espanol, and before I anchored for Telemundo on top of NBC. And so that, creating space, that was seismic. And before that, it was just social media and understanding that social media is here to stay. And you have to learn how to create the correct use and boundaries, and, realizing, having that awareness of, oh, this is addicting and it's for a reason. And how do we use it? Here's one thing that I'll tell you. When Katrina hit, we didn't have Facebook. It became, I sent my first text message during Hurricane Katrina, my first text message, I-9 predictive text on my Nokia phone. And we would always sit around and say, man, had we had social media when the storm hit, I bet you we wouldn't have waited as long to get federal assistance. I bet they would have come sooner, and we wouldn't have had 1,600 people die, right? Like 1,600 people for New Orleans was a lot for anybody. But, so I always saw it as like, this is a good thing. Social media is a good thing. Now it's morphed into so many ways, but it's still determining how we produce content and news and how we create trustworthy connections with the audience, which, Doc, I don't need to tell you, trust in the media right now is just, it's so fragile. It's so fragile. And it leads to a lot of issues, right? With misinformation, with personal safety. And so we have not figured it out yet. And I'm really hoping that these next minds that are coming up in the world of new technology can figure out how to show people in a better way what's authentic and what isn't. Yeah, that's my little list.
Those are incredible seismic shifts. You're absolutely. I love that Gray Media came up with their own AI, and it's Gray Eye.
Isn't that funny? I know.
That's really funny. I love that. And that does now, as I was listening to you talk, it's like, oh, that does make sense, because whatever you put into ChatGPT, it's out in the universe and you can't put in everything that you know. And yeah, so that makes sense. Right. So well done, Gray Media. And then you're absolutely right with the social media and the technology and streaming. I mean, I don't know about your kids. They rarely watch TV. They're just on their, either on their computer or on their phone streaming. So it is a whole different way of digesting content. They don't read as much anymore. And so we've got to figure out how to give them content that they will digest. So what advice, we'll end with this question. So since most of my listeners are leaders trying to become the most effective leader they can, what advice do you give them right now to be the most effective leaders they can?
I love how you guys said, give us 3 tips. And I really tried to stick to that, because in case you haven't picked up, I tend to ramble. I would say, make sure that you commit to a good partner. find a good therapist, and find a good lawyer. Those are my threes.
I have never heard those tips. That's brilliant. You are so right. That is brilliant.
I say it because
brilliant. Now, did y'all hear that? Say it again, Lucy. Say it again. Number one, say it again.
Commit to a good partner, right? I mean, really commit to a good partner, right? Find a good therapist and find a good lawyer. Yeah. You need to know how to operate in your relationships and with yourself and why it is you want what you want and figuring that out. And then you need to know how to operate in the systems that exist in this country so that you don't step all over your own dreams and you don't trust the wrong people and you don't fall into a contract that's not going to be, what they told you it would be, right? And there's just so many rookie lessons that could be no need to learn them if you just start smart, So I wish I would have known some of those things sooner.
Oh my gosh, mic drop moment. If y'all, honestly, that's some of the I've heard on this podcast.
Thank you. I tried.
Choose
I did
wisely.
Homework for you.
Yeah. I can tell you were totally prepared. It's like, I've got to get to these questions that I made her prepare for. So number one, choose well with your partner. Number two, find a good therapist and work on yourself and make sure you understand your own childhood trauma and the things that trigger you and how to interpersonally resolve conflict. And then number three, find a good lawyer so that you can navigate all of the legal systems and just operating in business. Lucy Bustamante, thank you so very much. You are awesome.
You're wonderful. To be continued over lunch.
Thank you to all the listeners of the Seismic Shift podcast. You are the reason why we are now a top 10% global podcast. That's because of you. Thank you for tuning in. And I just can't wait to see you all again. Thanks to Lucy Bustamante. Take care, y'all. Bye. Thank you for joining us on the Seismic Shift. And before you go, can I ask one favor of you? Do you mind sharing today's episode with a leader you know? The power of this conversation is found in your using it and sharing it to create real connection in your life. Lastly, I'd like to thank Loyola University New Orleans for helping bring this content to life.